What's up, surf fans? We're back for episode number 3 of the Ski Bum Surf Guide. Today we're coming to you from El Tunco and El Sunzal in Surf City, El Salvador. We're going to give you a surf spot breakdown. We're going to give you some food and accommodation breakdown. We've been here for about a week, and we're going to clue you in some of the things we figured out just in our little bit of time here. So with no further ado, we're going to go straight to the maps, and we're going to break it down for you. So here we are in here's the map of El Tunco and El Sunzal. As you can see, El Sunzal is on the west side of the map. El Tunco is on the east side of the map. There's a long beach in between that's separated by a rock and a river mouth. There's actually 3 river mouths here. The middle river mouth is the one where the rock is, and the rock is known as El Tunco Rock, okay? To the west of the rock, that's going to be the Sunzal side of the beach, and to the east of the rock, that's going to be the La Bocanita side of the rock, okay? That means the river mouth and the little river mouth in Spanish. So our apartment is right over here, which is close to the school in El Sunzal and close to, right on the river. We're about a 5 to 7 minute walk from El Sunzal through a little jungle access road. It's really nice. It's really quiet and peaceful. Sunzal itself, you can see here on the map, it's a right-hand point. The peak sticks out really far into the ocean. It has a deep channel right here that comes up on some shallow rocks right in here that are fed from this river mouth. It's one of the most notorious right-hand points in all of Central America. It works all the time. There's a deep channel. You can surf any kind of board you want. It works with any board. It works every day. It has a reputation for being kind of fat, but I found that if you choose the right waves at El Sunzal, they fly. Okay, so the trick is just picking the right waves and taking off deep enough, coming around the bottom at the right time and flying into that section. We've been here for 5 or 6 days, and I've already had a couple waves, probably over 300 yards, probably close to 45-second to a minute rides. It can be kind of bumpy, but it handles in any wind. In the morning, it's not usually bumpy at all, especially with the lower tide. It does seem to prefer the lower tide, okay? And as you can see here, there's a long stretch of beach break that's inside of El Sunzal. It goes by the name El Sunzalito, which means Little Sunzal, and I'll tell you honestly that I've seen peaks breaking all the way through here, lefts and rights. The current can be pretty insane by the point, but it gets more mellow as you come over to the rock, and that also goes for the beach break at high tide in front of El Sunzal Point. You can have a lot of water moving. It can be kind of hard to get out of the water at high tide. You're going to have to dodge some of the sets and get out quick so you don't get, rolled into the rocks or take a cobblestone to the foot. But if you come down closer down here to El Sunzalito and the El Tunco Rock, there's a big area of sand that's fed by this river mouth right in the center of El Tunco. And you can always come in there pretty easily. Of course, it's going to be easier to get in at low tide than high tide. That's almost a rule with almost all of these El Salvadoran point breaks. But as far as right-hand point breaks goes, El Sunzal is extremely user-friendly. And as far as beach break goes, I would say that the beach break in the area and the inside peaks at El Sunzal are moderately user-friendly. The paddle out can be long. There can be a lot of current. You can definitely paddle for 10 or 15 minutes and still not make it to the peak. It's all about figuring out how the rip's moving and where the channel is. At lower tide, you can kind of walk out on these rocks here if you know what you're doing. But at higher tide, you're better off just paddling into the channel and taking the long way around, because the current's just going to be insane either way. It does seem to be, to me anyway, from what I've noticed so far, that the current's a lot less at lower tide than higher tide. So And also the point is a lot more lined up at lower tide than higher tide. That being said, it works at all tides. It works in almost all wind conditions. I paddled out the other day in the middle of the afternoon and surfed in 20-kilometer winds, which is about 10 miles an hour. And they were blowing hard, and they were blowing combination of onshore and cross shore. And I still caught some really fun ones on the inside. They were kind of bumpy, but I mean, if you're jonesing for some waves, you can always get some waves here. The last thing I'll say about this El Sunzal area of the beach is that it can really handle a huge crowd because the paddle back is so long and there are so many waves and there's so much current that an experienced surfer, even an intermediate surfer who has strong paddling skills, can always get up there and get another wave. Your ability to catch waves here is just going to be limited on how tired you get from paddling back in the channel. And I think this is one of the few places that I've ever been in my life where there are just, even if there are 50 people in the water surfing that day, there are still more waves than people. So it's an amazing spot if you want to get some waves. It's an amazing spot if you want to get away from a lot of the localized Central American surf breaks. You can surf any board you want here at El Sunzal. I've been surfing this here 5.5, 25.5 liter epoxy, which is like generally one of my beach break short boards, but it goes really great as a quad at El Sunzal. I've also surfed a twin here. Twin goes really great at El Sunzal. Pretty much everything goes good here. So you can just really, this is the kind of wave where you can come and really enjoy yourself. All right, next we're gonna move down the beach. And as you can see here, this is the far east side of the beach, and this is gonna be the area known as La Bocanita, La Bocana. The La Bocana is the reef peak here. You can see it's an A-frame peak. It's kind of like a poor man's trestles. It's flipped. The left is better than the right. The left is kind of more open and goes into somewhat of a channel. But I've also seen that channel closing out. The right breaks on rocks that can be shallow, and you can hit the rocks, so you need to really pay attention if you're going to take the right. Take a couple turns and then maybe kick out, especially if it's not high tide. La Bocanita and La Bocana are more of a high tide break. There are peaks that come all the way the inside here, all the way back down to almost to Tunco Rock. The inside of Tunco Rock is really rocky, and I haven't seen anyone surfing in there. But here, as you can see, in front of the river mouth and to the west of the peak, there's a lot of beach breaking here. Maybe like a 60, 70 yard stretch where little peaks are breaking and people are surfing and having a good time. This is a place that can handle a lot of surfers between La Bocana, La Bocanita, El Sunzalito, and El Sunzal. You got a lot of space, you got a lot of room to roam, you got a lot of different types of waves to enjoy. And yeah, it really is like a surfer's paradise. It's one of the coolest places I've ever been if you just want to have fun. There's not a lot of pumping barrels, but that being said, even on the little inside beach breaks at Sunzalito and Bocanita, I have seen some little grinding barrels, especially lefts, which is strange because El Salvador seems to be known for rights, but there are definitely some little grinding barrels here that you can get into if you have the right board and you're willing to kind of put yourself there and go for it. So next thing we're going to go is we're going to talk about the actual town. We're going to go right into another maps model, and we're going to see that this is a town. This is the town. The Sunzal, and Sunzal's here on the left, and that's the west side. And then we have the beach break here, and we have Sunzalito, and then you have the river mouth at El Tunco. This is where the rock will be. And then on the other side, you have La Bocanita here, and that's on the east side of the beach. Continuing east, you are headed towards San Blas and Punta Roca, which will be another video. But we'll see that in El Tunco, there are an insane amount of restaurants when it comes to options for food and drink and partying. El Tunco has them all. So far, my favorite restaurant in El Tunco is a little place called Mr. Coffee. They have, you know, tacos and burgers, and they make cake and pastries. They have a special, it's 4 tacos for $7. It comes with a couple French fries. Amazing tacos with cilantro and onions, and, you know, like chicken or beef or fish, and Come with avocado on top of it. Come with like tomatillo green salsa. Really bomb, and it's for $7. It's almost enough for 2 people to eat. It's a great appetizer. In general, El Tunco is really a tourist paradise until it comes down to the cost. El Tunco is expensive. All the accommodations between El Tunco and El Sunzal are going to be more expensive. I've found that El Sunzal is a little bit less expensive than El Tunco in terms of accommodation, but what's really nice is that in El Tunco it's really hard to find something that's like private with a kitchen, whereas here we are in El Sunzal. We're about a 5 to 7 minute walk from the Point Break, and we're about a 15-minute walk from El Tunco, and we're paying about $1,200 a month, which is a lot for Central America, but we have a completely private apartment that has a bedroom, that has a living room, that has 2 air conditioners. We have our own gate and our own private property that's about a 1/4 of an acre. We have a huge mango tree that we can pick mangoes off and eat. We have a hammock in the yard, and we have a lot of privacy here. We're not used to having this much privacy on surf trips, but we love it. I would stay here again. I'll post a link to the studio. It's called El Studio. It's on Airbnb. We'll post you a link. The hosts are amazing. The fruit trucks come down the road every day. Water trucks come down the road several times a week. The only thing you have to walk to El Tunco for is, like meat and rice and your basics. There's a few stores there where you can buy that stuff. I don't know. We've been spending about $10 or $15 every 2 to 3 days just to go to El Tunco and buy, like a half pound of chicken and maybe some rice and some beans and the basic stuff. And then we just hit the food trucks when they come with fresh fruit and fresh veggies and eggs and cheese and potatoes, and we fill our fridge up from there. And when the water truck comes, we get more water. So it's a pretty easy setup. It's really tourist friendly, and I highly recommend it if you want to stay out of the hustle and bustle of El Tunco. Staying in El Sunzal is your call. Now, if you want to party and you want to stay out all night, and if you're single and you want to do that, El Tunco is highly, highly recommended when it comes to do that. There's a lot of people in El Tunco that aren't even surfers. It's a surfer town, but it's also a tourist town. It's also a party town, and there's just a lot going on there. There's food for every budget. There's hotels for every budget. There's $400 hotels, and there's $40 hotels, okay? So this area is pretty expansive. This area is pretty explored, and I really think my favorite thing about this area is that the localism factor is just really low, man. A lot of Central America, like my last video, El Zonte, other places, I would get burned pretty frequently in El Zonte, and that's just like a fact of life here if you're like a white guy or you're a foreigner. But the reality is here in El Sunzal, in El Tunco, there are more waves than the locals know what to do with, and there are a lot of tourists, but there are more waves than even the tourists know what to do with. So you can really, really enjoy this place. If you're a tourist, you can get a lot of waves here. This is kind of an intermediates paradise, but man, it can be enjoyed by beginners, intermediates, and advanced surfers. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you're really liking this content, I encourage you to like and subscribe. Leave us a comment, because YouTube doesn't know we exist unless you like and subscribe and leave us a comment. We're getting some views. We appreciate the views in the comments we're getting. We got a lot more to come in the Ski Bum Surf Guide. We got another 2.5 months in Central America. We're going to be working our way down and up and around. So stay tuned for our next video. Hope everybody's having a good day. Pura Vida and all that shit. Yeah.